Hey, I'm Æyers, and this week I've been brainstorming board game ideas. There's a board game design competition, and it's looking for a gateway game, which is a game that is simple enough that people new to board gaming can easily understand it and intuitively figure out what's going on, but also complicated and full enough that they can enjoy a good, solid board gaming experience. What that means for me is that I need to simplify as much as possible and then rely on a few well-connected game mechanics to bring the game to life. The first thing I did is try to think of how to take a meeple placement game and simplify it as much as possible. Now, the problem with meeple placement games is that game designers want there to be a lot of unique and important decisions to be made about where you put your meeples, of course, because that's what the game is. However, that often means that they kind of spiral out of control. There's a ton of options. Agricola has steadily grows into 24 or more different placements, and that's just going to be very overwhelming for a new board gamer. And so I think the meeple placement mechanic is really fun and is a pretty easy to understand mechanic because you're just taking your meeple, putting it somewhere, something happens. So I want to simplify it as much as possible, keep it from sprawling too much, and I think that'll lead to a good idea. So here's what I've come up with. So first of all, I have a space theme, because space themes are fun. The game area will comprise of a central space station, and then each player will have a planet in front of them. The central space station will have very few meeple placement slots, as well as a shuttle with meeple placement slots in it that goes to each planet. The planets will then generate resources, and where you are in the shuttle will determine which or how much of the resources you can get. And so if you're the first person in the shuttle, then you'll get whatever resource there's most of from that planet. And if you're farther back, you'll get the next most. But if you're first, you won't be able to choose from any of the resources. It'll be specifically the one there's most of. And so you'll have to carefully position your meeples so that you get the resources you want, rather than the most plentiful ones necessarily. Players will then use the resources they've gathered to build buildings on their planet. And those buildings will give them points towards winning, or could have the planet generate more things, or who knows what else I'll come up with if I end up pursuing this game further. That's a brief overview of the first idea, and that's all I have right now. The next genre I wanted to look into is the area control genre. Now, because it's a gateway game and we're trying to get new people involved, I wanted to make it co-op, because the area control games that are most popular are very, you have to fight each other, and new people are not necessarily interested in that. And so a co-op experience makes it a little bit more beginner-friendly. But then I was thinking about it, and I don't like co-op games, necessarily. If they want a co-op game, they can get a co-op game, and that's going to work it out. So I think what I want to make instead is a semi-cooperative game, where there is a possibility of losing to the board. However, given that you don't lose to the board, somebody wins and somebody loses. You still get first, second, third, whatever. That creates a couple opportunities for me. First of all, I don't have to worry about what's called quarterbacking in co-op games, where if one person knows the game better, they just kind of tell everyone what to do, and then it's no longer a fun gaming experience for the new people, because they're just getting told what to do and they don't really understand what's going on. Second thing is that now that it's semi-co-op and not just co-op, that means that I don't have to rely on either randomness or a predetermined AI to control an enemy faction. I can have the players themselves control the faction, because it's now an interesting strategic choice to try to sabotage the other players, but not too much, because then you'll lose. Beyond that, I don't have that specific of an idea of what I want this game to be. I'm thinking that it'll either be like Settlers of Catan style, where there's a map, and then you take parts of it by placing buildings, or that it'll be hero unit based, where there's still a map and you still take areas by placing buildings, but you have a hero unit that you have to walk around the map to place the buildings and maybe collect from the buildings, and that focuses the possibility space down onto your character. And so what could be an overwhelming game if you're allowed to place anything anywhere gets a lot simpler if you have a hero unit that you have to drive around and you get to shoot enemies from the beginning of the game, and then later on you can build, maybe there's turret buildings that help you destroy the enemies. Aside from that, the only mechanic that I really do think that I want to add is that when you kill enemies, I want that to generate a unique resource for you. That's all I have right now for my second idea. Now, I am thinking that I want to focus more on board games for the next little while, and so I think most of my weekly videos are gonna be focusing in more on board games. So next week's project is going to be fleshing out the area control semi-co-op idea more and coming up with one more idea. And then the week after that, I'll just be experimenting with all three and then choosing one to pursue more seriously for this competition. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. See you next week. The time flies by in the yellow and green. Stick around to see what I mean. There's a mountain top that I'm dreaming of. If you need me, you know where I'll be.